Hi guys, how's it going? Hopefully you're all doing well in this current situation. We're in week 4 now of lockdown in the UK. I'm sure many of you, well I know many of you around the world are in the same boat as we are. Hopefully you're all staying safe, staying at home, following all the guidelines, and above all keeping sane, keeping active. Hopefully you're learning some new things. I've seen a lot of people that are learning to cook, learning to play the guitar, you know, all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff that you can do, because it's unusual for us to have this amount of time off, which a lot of people fortunately are using to their advantage. I have been doing a bit of keep fit because the gyms are shut and I'm lost without them. I've read a few books, obviously just spending some quality family time together, just making the most of this is all you can do really at this time. Fortunately for you, before all this happened, we took loads and loads of footage as we always do, so we've got plenty more weeks ahead of us of footage to bring you. In this episode of the Extension Build series, what we've got is the greatest cat flap you will ever see. We've got some silicone in tips, and also I build a Swedish shelf in an airing cupboard. So keep watching and I'll see you at the other end. So guys, I'm inside the property and we are working, well I'm working on this incredible cat flap here. As you can see, that's going to be the entrance for the cat into the house, which has been carefully built into these stairs here. And what I'm doing now, as you can see, we've put this hardy-backer board on the sides here to line it all. The cat flap has been installed through the wall. Obviously, because it's a cavity wall, we've had to get some extenders to bring this through here. As you can see, the cat's been in and out already. And now what we're going to do is tile it. So I've painstakingly crafted this tile, cut this out. Greg from GN Tiling, if you're watching this, hopefully you're proud of that cut, mate. I think even you'd be proud of doing that. So yeah, that's going to go on the back of the wall in there. And then obviously all the other sides will be done as well. And then what we'll do is I've got some architrave in my van, which I've kept, and we're gonna frame this all in so it's gonna look like it's meant to be there. Obviously it is meant to be there. We've already planned this a long time ago. So yeah, I'll set the time lapse up as usual and you can watch me carry on doing it. So what you've just seen me doing is applying Primer G to this hardy-backer board. This stuff here, this is what we normally use. It's a really, really good product. It's an acrylic-based primer, and what it's done, it's mixed down 50-50. This is already pre-mixed. And then you just apply it with a brush or a roller. You might have seen me use it on previous project series. What it does, it just takes the suction out of this backing board here. So when we apply our adhesive, it doesn't just pull straight in and cause any delamination. So now I've primed that, I'll let that go off properly and I'll go and mix up some adhesive and we can get the tile sticking. So as you can see, the tiles are in, looking smart. This is like literally the greatest cat flap ever. Hopefully the cat is going to appreciate this. So I've just used the nibbler. This is the nibbler. It's commonly known as a multi-tool, but we call it a nibbler because it nibbles through wood. So I've just nibbled off these bits of skirting here, which will then fit on the architrave here. Just like that. I've got a bit of fine tuning to do just to get it to fit nicely, because by the nature of these, they're metal blades and it does flex a little bit, so even though you can get it nice and dead straight up and down like that vertically, it might just wobble a bit as it goes in, which unfortunately that's done. So I've just got a bit of fine tuning to go there. Just tidy this little area up here and then get the architrave all around here. And then tomorrow, once the adhesive's gone off fully, I can get it all grouted, silicone around the bottom, and that will be it. The world's greatest cat flap will be complete. So, there you go. As you've just seen, all the architrave has been fitted. I've eased the corners in nicely, as you can see there and there. So they're looking really good. So once that's all painted in, it will look amazing. This is a lucky cat, I hope he appreciates it as he's walking in and out of the house. What I'm gonna do now is get all tidied up and everything because it's Friday and it's home time. And then Monday morning, all the adhesive will have gone off. So I'll get all the grout put in, get silicone around the bottom, and then the decorator can work his magic. And then, yeah, that's it, it'll be finished. On to the next thing. So, the cat flap has had time to go off fully over the weekend. So now all the adhesive is dry, it is now time to get it grouted. So I've got my tools ready, here. Not those, we don't need those. I'll just use those to pull out the spacers. So I'll get all the grout in there and then get it polished up nicely, and this is finally done. So as usual, I'll set you up a time lapse so you can watch me do it. the finished product. The wonderful Catflap has been completed. So it's all grouted in nicely. I've washed everything off. Probably will have to give it another wash down later once it's all fully dried, just purely because it leaves like a residue from the grout. So obviously you need to keep washing over it to make sure you wash all that residue away. Being as it's white grout as well and a grey tile down here, you will notice that. So I need to make sure that's all sorted. All that's left to do now is obviously to paint the architrave up. A bit of patching in to do, just around here, just touching up nicely, which Chris will be able to do soon, hopefully. And yeah, my work here is done. So today it is bloody freezing. That's why I'm wearing all these clothes and this stupid hat, so excuse that. But I'm not outside today, I'm inside, so I can take that off. So my job today is to shelve this airing cupboard. So as you can see, I've already made a start in here. We're going to be making the traditional airing cupboard shelves, which are actually the slotted shelves. I believe they're a Swedish design. Not from IKEA though, these are all handcrafted on site. So as you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 shelves in here. So these bottom 3 shelves will run straight through in line with this hot water cylinder here, straight down there, so you can still get in to access everything. And then this top shelf will form like an L shape, which will go across here and then straight across here, leaving 100mm either side of the boiler to make sure obviously when it needs to be serviced it can be. And there's also going to be a rail put in at the top so the client can hang shirts and stuff in here to dry them. So I'm back outside, which is why I've got my stupid hat on again, because I'm out in the cold. I can have it all, I suppose. Unfortunately, nature of the business, it means sometimes you have to brave the elements. Right, so the shelf is actually 300mm wide, which these together are 180. So we know we've got 120 left over. So that divided by 1, 2, 3 gaps is 40mm per gap. In an ideal world, as these timbers are 45mm, we would have had this exactly the same gap in between, but obviously we've had to narrow that down because it's not an ideal world. So losing 5mm between each one, you're not going to notice. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll make myself a little jig. I can get all these cut to size and get them all stuck together. So I've got all my components cut, and now what I need to do is stick it all together. So I've worked out, obviously as I mentioned before, that the shelf is going to be 1 metre by 300. Yeah, so this will be the top rail and these will sit underneath like so. Reason being that our rail, which is fixed to the wall, is fitted across this way and our slats are going to run like this. So we want this edge then to sit on the top of that to give us a nice secure seat basically on it. So what I've done is worked out these are 45mm. I've got an overall distance of 1 metre, but what I'm going to do is step back in 10mm off the edge as well, just to make sure it sits nicely. And then what I've done is divided that then by 900, which has given us a total of 20, which means there's 20 pieces. So to give us equal gaps in between, so it will sit like this. Yeah, that means we need 10 of these pieces. So that's what I've done, cut 10, got them all sanded in nicely. So now all we need to do is fix it all together. So it's 7:30 in the morning, so it's a bit early to start using any power tools yet, so I just thought I'd show you exactly what I'm doing. So I've got all our timber cuts ready for the shelves upstairs. I've already made a few of them, which you've probably already seen, but this is all the timber that I need for the next shelf. I've got a drawing here, pretty primitive, so don't judge me. It's literally just to give me some dimensions. It's not to scale, I haven't used a ruler, but obviously the finished project will look a lot neater than that. So yeah, what I'll do is I will have to sand these down by hand at the minute, going back to the old school methods of blocking a bit of sandpaper. I'd rather use that, but for the time being it's too early. I don't want to upset the neighbours because, you know, we're considerate builders, we do try. So here is the finished product. You've seen me sanding it all up and sticking it together. So now the moment of truth. Let's see if it actually fits where it's meant to fit. So just like Blue Peter, here's a few we made earlier. So these are the other shelves, and then this one's going to sit top there above the hot water cylinder. It fits. Result. There we go. Beautiful. So now the clients will be able to store their towels and stuff in here. So now all that's left to do is fit a rail. So undecided yet as to whether to put one up here, which means you can get a few shirts in here, or maybe put one in down here. So if I put it here, they've got a bit more space in there to put shirts rather than up there, because it's going to be obviously tight between the border and this shelf. So yeah, I'll have a look at that. Awesome! So next job on the list is to get over this little detail here. So the windows, as you can see, have this little recess in them, which is apparently meant for a wooden sill board to sit over and latch on to stop any movement. But unfortunately in this circumstance, we've obviously got a stone worktop, so that's impossible to do. So we can't obviously notch that over it. So the way we're going to get over it is by using these aluminium trims. Obviously that's a protective cover on it, but it does come in aluminium coloured. So what I'm going to do, we've had these machined up by a place in Warwick. And as you can see, they will slot in. There's a small gap in between the frame and the worktop. So they'll slot in there and they'll slide down nicely and cover that completely. So what I need to do is just notch around this area here and here, so it fits in snug. And then what I'm going to do is put some brick foam in there and also some small bits of timber, which will just give us our nice levels, and the foam will just act as a bit of a condensation barrier and stop any cold transfer coming through. And then I'll spray these pieces up. I've got the same colour as these frames I've got to spray on these, and then they will sit in there nicely then. Also what I'm going to do, because obviously as you can see there's a few bits which have been scratched as these worktops have been fitted in, because obviously they're big old slabs, so getting these in was quite tight. So unfortunately they've nicked a few bits. So what I'll do is I'll just get all these blown back in as well, so you'll never know. So as you can see, I've marked up the pieces that need to be removed there and there. So I'm going to get it set up on here, clamped up nicely so it doesn't flick around anywhere, and then use the angle grinder just to cut these bits out. Then what I'll do is use my snips just to fine tune the edges, and then finally file it up just to keep it nice and smooth and make sure those corners are nice and tight. So as you can see, the aim of this is to cover that over, and that's what we've achieved here. So obviously it's standing up quite high at the minute, but what we'll do is once I've got all these cut, I'll get them all sprayed up, and then we'll basically get them lined up here so they sit nicely, something like that, like you can see here. So it'll cover this over nicely and you will never know. So as you can see, all the pieces are done. They're all prepped and ready for the next stage, which is to get all this protective coating removed from them and then get them primed up. I'm using an etch primer because of what it does is it gives a really great key for the coat of paint that we're going to need, which is this. Pre-mixed by the paint store. The guys, when they fitted the windows, actually left us a tin of spray paint, so we've got the rail code, so we've had this made up especially for these. So they're all primed up now. All I need to do is just wait for this to go off, which the can says about 15 to 20 minutes, but it's about -1 at the minute, so it'll probably be a little bit longer. But fortunately, it's break time, so after that, hopefully they will be ready to give a second coat to. Also, the good stuff with this primer is that you can actually sand it down, because obviously we want an amazing finish, so we can sand it down between coats with some wet and dry paper, which I shall be doing. So they're all dry at last. I've given them a quick sand down as well, because there was a few little bubbles on there, so just to denib them, make sure they're nice and smooth. So now it's time for the next coat. So the second coat is dry. I've given them a quick denib as well with some very low grit sandpaper, and I've shook this up for over 2 minutes. My arm's starting to ache now, so I think it's about time to get them sprayed. So I've got all my pieces sprayed up and ready now. They're all cut to size, apart from a couple which are over there, which I've got to actually trim down. I'll explain why in a minute. So they're all ready to go in. I've put my pieces of timber in here, which are going to act as basically a leveler. They will then give me the exact height to work to. I've also put foam in here, which is going to prevent any cold areas in there, which will cause condensation. So that's just a bit of extra protection in there. Obviously these are insulated windows, but every little bit helps. So that's that. So the next stage now, I'll get some silicone in here. I'll put some silicone on top of these, slide this in. I'll also put a small bead across here as well, across the back edge of there, which will just help hold everything in place. Squeeze it all down nicely, get it all leveled out, and then obviously work my way around. Then once they're all in, then I'll use our profiling kit and get everything all nicely siliconed in all the way around, and the job will be finished. So that's the first two in. As you can see, really finishes it off now. So we've completely hid this little groove that we had in there, and it actually looks as if it's part of the original frame. Yeah, they're both in. Now all I need to do is obviously repeat that process, trim these ones down to suit, so I can bring my level right the way through, and then get more silicon. So, as I mentioned earlier, what I need to do is adapt a couple of these pieces to fit in, because the gap is a little bit smaller. So the back of this one, what I'm actually gonna have to do is use my grinder and take this down from 2mm down to 1mm. That way then this piece will slot straight in between the worktop and the gap that we need to cover. And then this one that I thought didn't fit was actually my error. I hadn't taken this down enough, as thin as I needed it to be, so a little bit of filing on that corner there, and then that should just slide straight in. So guys, all of our little cover strips are in, as you can see. So all them little gaps are all covered nicely. So next stage is silicon in. So what we've done here, we've got the rail code from this anthracite framework, and we've actually matched it with the silicon. So this colour, this rail code is exactly the same as the frame, which is awesome because then you're not going to notice it as much. Here's one that I've already siliconed in, using our chroma kit. Awesome little kits, much better than using your finger. As you can see, you get a really nice crisp edge all the way across there, and ultimately that's what you want. You want it to look really smart. So this is the finished product. As you can see, I've used the former kit and gone around all this to give me a nice crisp line, looking really sharp everywhere, which is good. Using one of those former kits is much better than using your finger. Obviously it gives you a sharper line because your finger can move in and out a little bit as you're going along. Whereas the silicone things, although they're flexible, the actual profile itself is rigid, so it makes sure you've got a nice uniform bead all the way across. Also, it stops you getting any bacteria into the silicone, because one of the reasons we use silicone is for its anti-mold properties. So if you use your finger, you can get any bacteria in there, in the wet silicone, which can then grow and increase the risk of getting any mold forming. So yeah, definitely, if you haven't got one, get yourself one of these kits because they are really good. So yeah, that looks pretty smart now. We'll obviously keep away from that for 12 hours or so just to make sure it's all gone off fully. And then there are a few bits on the frame that I've got to touch up. A little bit up there which has been chipped off unfortunately, so I'll get that touched up, and then this is it. The kitchen is all over to the client. So hopefully you enjoyed that video and learned a few new things along the way. As always, if you've enjoyed it, give us a big thumbs up, and if you're not a subscriber already, make sure you subscribe to us and turn on your notifications, so every time we make a video you'll be notified. If you're on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, make sure you give us a follow on there as well, because there's always different content on those channels. Just search Build with A&E and we'll come up. From me and all of the team at A&E Construction, stay safe, stay at home, and we'll see you next time.